Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Abigail Murray. I work for the Saldanha by IDZ, and I'm responsible for enterprise development. I was speaking to someone this morning, and I explained to them that the Togasi series, Togasi stands for Talks on the Oil and Gas Industry, has been happening from last year. So if you want to know more about what we've discussed in the past, the different topics that we've handled and addressed, you are most welcome just to talk to our marketing division in front, Senzwa and Portia Mahlangu. We are privileged this morning to have quite a diverse crowd. I was just explaining to Mandy, our guest speaker, that the IDZ has partnered with CEDA, where we also facilitate training for startup businesses. And our database of businesses registered on our database is literally people that declared their interest to be developed for the oil and gas industry. So the businesses on the database ranges from startups to existing businesses to experts in the oil and gas industry. So today, the session is only an hour long. So my introduction can't be too long because we all come to hear from the experts. This morning we have Mandy Maguire. She's the training and development expert at Subtech, and she's going to talk to us more about diving and then also how it relates to the oil and gas industry. So as usual, we welcome you to our session, and we want you to learn as much as possible, and then we also expect you to reflect on where your business is pertaining to the oil and gas industry, and then join us in our development journey to develop our communities and our small businesses so that we can ensure maximum uptake in the oil and gas industry once it's fully fledged and ready to take off. So without further ado, I introduce to you Mandy.
Good morning, everybody. You don't have to clap yet. I haven't said anything profound. A very big thank you from Subtech side for the privilege of addressing all of you this morning. It's really wonderful to be here this morning, more especially given the fact that it's raining. And I think we are all in desperate need of the rain, so we say thanks for that. As a beginning point to my presentation, I was asked to introduce myself. As Abigail has already said, I'm the Group Training and Development Manager at Subtech. Subtech being a specialist maritime services provider. And seeing as I have a captive audience, I would be remiss for not giving a little bit of information on the company, which I'll get to in due course. But just in terms of who I am, I'm South African, I live in Cape Town. I had the dubious honor of being born in Vereniging, which unfortunately travels with me on my passport everywhere. I currently hold a master's degree in industrial psychology from the University of South Africa, and I am in the process of completing my master's in shipping law at UCT. I've spent 6 years in oil and gas, predominantly with Subtech, and then 16 years in the maritime industry working for various role players, starting with Smith & Mandler Marine, moving to Subtech, to Marine Crew Services, to SAMHSA for a very short stint, and then back to Subtech, which is essentially home. In terms of the presentation today, like I said, I'm going to make use of the opportunity to do a little bit of marketing about Subtech and who we are, just so that you get an understanding of why I'm here and why I'm talking about commercial diving. I'm also going to be running through what commercial diving is, what the equipment is that they use, where divers are used in the world, what we use them for, what you need to become a diver, training, qualifications, experience, training developments within the commercial diving arena. And then just to run you through an introduction to one of our diving managers who runs diving services for Subtech South Africa, just so that you can hear firsthand. That sounds funny when I say firsthand, but just so we asked him to answer some questions in terms of why he got into diving, what he thinks makes a good diver, and what the advantages are of a career in diving. Looking at career opportunities, and then trying to link that into the Port of Saldanha, because that's why you guys are all sitting here, because you want to know how oil and gas is going to influence and improve and develop the Port of Saldanha. So I hope I've managed to do that as well. I will also apologize in advance. There is a video. The sound quality is the sound quality, unfortunately, because it was of an actual underwater inspection. And I probably am going to battle to get the video up because, again, it's IT related, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So just to talk to you a little bit about who Subtech are. Subtech was established in 1995. We are currently part of the James Fisher Group. But looking back, Subtech is really one of those modern day fairy sort of stories in terms of how it came into being. It started out with 3 guys who had a vision of becoming something bigger and better and providing diving services initially to South Africa. So it literally started with 3 guys who are all commercial divers in terms of qualifications and who started out with 1 rubber duck, 1 bakkie, and doing services within the port of Durban. 2 of those guys are still with the company, and another one is working in the offshore commercial diving arena. In terms of what we do now, we're a lot more than a commercial diving company. We specialize in the provision of world-class maritime services to the sub-Saharan Africa region and now into the Middle East as well. We have our headquarters in Durban. We have offices working down the coast. We have offices in Walvis Bay, Cape Town, Durban, Maputo, Pemba, Tanzania, and then Mauritius. And we are in the process of setting up office in Ghana as well on the back of an award of a contract there. We are ISO 9001-2015 accredited, as well as hold full membership of IMCA, which is the International Maritime Contractors Association. And if you want to enter the world of commercial diving, IMCA becomes your Bible and is a very important resource. And it is a guideline, but you need to be certified by that to work for any of the oil majors. We like to believe we have a large depth of industry experience, geographical services and spread, and we offer a uniquely comprehensive service, and I'll run you through what we actually do offer in the way of services. So starting with the most important and the reason I'm here today, subsea. We look at offshore and inshore diving, and there is quite a big difference between the two. Offshore diving is much more related to oil and gas than inshore diving. As well as inspection services. And when I say inspection services, we talk about non-destructive testing services, so NDT services to the industry. Salvage, the high-profile guys, the drama queens of the world. So if you see news coverage of the fishing vessels that caught fire in the port of Cape Town, we've had 2 in the last little while. We were the salvors responsible for I wouldn't say the rescue of them because they were past that at that point in time, but getting them to a state where they can actually be towed to be scrapped. Then, getting onto marine, we have a large degree of floating assets, so we have 2 tugs, a tug on charter, quite a number of floating barges that we use as platforms for construction and diving, and then lots of little rubber ducks. Hydrographic survey is also another important element of services that we offer, and quite a lot of our survey has been done in the Port of Saldanha with dredging works. And then lastly, projects, including marine construction, pipeline installation and maintenance, logistical support throughout sub-Saharan Africa, and cable installation and maintenance building initiatives in the maritime sector. Right, I'm sure that I've bored you enough about Subtech. Well, hopefully I've made you interested. Let's look at what commercial diving is. And I think for me the biggest message to get across today is that commercial diving is not recreational diving. So the guys who go out with their paddy licenses and go and do commercial spearfishing, recreational spearfishing and diving, that's not what we're talking about today. Commercial diving, professional divers, they have to attend specific courses that are IMCA accredited and in this country Department of Labour accredited, and we'll run through those just now. And who utilize diving equipment that is completely different to recreational diving. Our gear typically includes a surface supply, and that surface supply would be air, communications, light, power. We wear what they call Kirby Morgan hats or protective helmets for diving. Unfortunately, couldn't bring one. I wanted to show you what it looks like. You probably will see in some of the photographs. But I tried one of those on in the reception room downstairs, and I was claustrophobic within 30 seconds of having the thing on my head. So to answer your question, I'm not a commercial diver, never been, don't intend to be. So that's in essence what commercial divers are, very generically. Talking about diving equipment, A wetsuit's are pretty much a given, and that's across recreational and commercial diving. I don't know if you can see nicely, and I was told not to walk too much, but if you have a look at what they're both holding, those are what are called Kirby Morgan helmets. And that is where the surface supply comes in. A weight belt. I must just tell you, in the old days, a few decades ago, instead of weight belts, the guys used to wear metal shoes to weight them down. Metal helmets made of copper. Absolutely unreal that guys thought it was quite cool to go down to the bottom of the ocean like that. What we call an umbilical. And it's called an umbilical for a reason, because it's very much similar to your umbilical when you're in your mother's stomach. So an umbilical essentially is your lifeline. It's what keeps you in communication, gives you air, instructions, light. It's your lifeline. That's why we call it an umbilical. And then last but not least, booties. Because when we're diving in very, very hazardous environments often, and obviously you need protection. Where are divers used? Divers can work offshore or inland. There are opportunities on both sides, and in many locations around the world. So becoming qualified doesn't mean that you then are stuck with being a diver in South Africa. In terms of subsectors in which divers are used, marine civil construction work, we use divers a lot. I think that the other important thing that perhaps I should have mentioned up front is that diving and the qualification to be a diver is like you and me getting in our cars and driving to work. Becoming a diver is your means of getting to your workplace. So it's the ability to blow bubbles, for want of a better analogy, and it enables you to take the lift down to where you need to work. So being a diver entails a lot more than just being able to dive. Marine maintenance, salvage, aquaculture and fish farming, renewable energy, oil and gas that we're all here to talk about. We use our divers for inland waters, dam inspections, subsea pipeline and cable installation and maintenance. So pretty much all the areas that I've already touched on in terms of the services that we offer. So there's a couple of questions you need to ask yourself when you're looking at the option of becoming a diver. The first one might seem a bit stupid, but do you enjoy diving or enjoy swimming in water? You don't have to be the world's greatest swimmer. You don't have to be an Olympic athlete. You just need to enjoy being in water. Are you physically fit and healthy? Diving requires that you undergo what they call a dive medical that checks on a number of aspects, including lungs, ears, heart, etc. So you need to be fit and to be able to pass that medical. Do you like to work with your hands? Do you have a practical aptitude? Like I said to you, diving essentially really just gets you to your workplace. Once you get there, you will be engaged in things like welding, grinding, all kinds of things that you would think of doing above water, you may be required to do underwater, which obviously introduces its own risks and hazards. Do you want to spend long time away from home? I know there'll be a lot of guys here going, hell yeah, bring it on, let's go. But it's a nature of the industry that we work in. For instance, when we do offshore contracts, we have guys going away from home for anything between 45 and 60 days at a time. You need to have the kind of support back home that enables you to be away from home for that period. Do you mind living in enclosed spaces with a whole bunch of guys? On day 1, it might seem fine. By day 28, you might not like very many people anymore. And that's particularly true of saturation diving, where you are actually in a habitat submerged below water. There is no escape. That is your home for 28 days. It doesn't help that you don't like somebody. Do you suffer from claustrophobia? Like I said to you, fear of enclosed spaces, you definitely don't want to be diving. And then, do you enjoy using numerical reasoning? And this would be another good reason as to why I would not like to be a diver. You need to have a certain degree of maths and physical science ability. Diving and pressures put certain pressure, I guess, on your body. So you need to understand diving physiology and pressure, etc. You also need to be able to work out dive tables, length of time underwater. So there is a maths and physical science aptitude needed as well. In terms of commercial diving schools, you need to, if you want to become a commercial diver, attend one of the 4 accredited diving schools in South Africa. 3 of them are in the Western Cape, with 1 in Durban. And you guys are really fortunate because Sea Dog Commercial Diving School is in Saldanha Bay. It is our preferred diving school, even though we have our head offices in Durban. CDOG is a fantastic school. If anybody here is wanting to consider a career or knows somebody wanting to consider a career, I would honestly suggest you guys go and chat to Bridget Thompson at CDOG. But that you need to attend one of these accredited diving schools. They are accredited by both the Department of Labour and IMCA. So in terms of courses that are available in South Africa at these dive schools, there are essentially 3, Class 4, Class 3 and Class 2 divers. Your Class 4 diver, and unfortunately or fortunately, you need to do Class 4 to be able to do Class 3 to be able to do Class 2. Total length from not being a diver to having a Class 2 is a 12-week course. It sounds relatively quick. It is hell of expensive at this point in time, and I'll address that point as I continue in terms of funding options. But at the moment, a Class 2 commercial diving course will set you back about 110,000 Rand, to give you an idea. But you don't have to do the full Class 2. So Class 4 is a 30-meter scuba course. Like I said, it's a 4-week course, and once you exit, if you decide that's where you want to leave, you can go and work for the fire department, for the police. Both have diving services, or as a media or scientific diver. So if you want to go and film underwater, you really don't need anything more than a Class 4. Your next qualification, which is one of the more common ones, is your Class 3 certificate, which allows you to dive to 30 meters. And this will largely allow you to work in inland waters. So here we're talking about ports, we're talking about dams, not all dams, but more inland waters, shipping repairs, and close inshore salvage work. And then the one that really talks to oil and gas is your Class 2 diver, which is an IMCA recognized certificate of competency. It allows you to dive to 50 meters, and this is really the minimum qualification you need if you're wanting to head into the oil and gas industry. So as I mentioned, training of divers is hell of expensive at the moment, and we were privileged to be a part of what one of the projects that SAMSA, which is the South African Maritime Safety Authority, launched last year. It was the second of these QCTO project courses. There's so many acronyms in this industry. QCTO standing for Quality Council for Trades and Occupations. And the purpose of the process was to get to a point where we can register a national certificate for commercial diving that comprises not just that 12-week course, but actually encompasses a practical period of experiential learning. So when the guys actually go out to the market, they can say, yes, I've got experience, I've dived. I don't just have a 12-week certificate where the ink is hardly dried. Once we've done the work, it's been lodged with QCTO in terms of their quality assurance process. Once that's approved, it goes to SAQA, the South African Qualification Authority, and once they approve it, it gets added to the National Qualifications Framework. The important part out of all of that is that it then opens up a lot more funding options. It becomes a learnership, and learnerships are something that SETAs are much more likely to fund, should I say. So for us, it's very exciting because it links funding opportunities to people who would like to become divers. I know as a parent, if my son came to me now and said, I'd like to be a commercial diver Class 2, there's no way in hell I could fork out 110,000 Rand. Just to quickly run you through a typical diving career ladder, you would start out as a dive tender. A dive tender is somebody who essentially is in charge of the umbilicals. So he looks after the umbilical of the diver that's in the water, lets it out as he goes down and pulls it up as he comes in. It's a really important role because obviously you don't want your umbilical getting snagged on anything, you don't want it looping or knotting. So that's generally where divers start out to gain experience. And once he's deemed competent there, in terms of our process, he would become a trainee diver, then a diver, and we have certain criteria that we set. So there's a certain amount of time, minimum time, that he's expected to spend, or he or she is expected to spend in each of these roles, plus meet certain competencies before we deem them capable of continuing up the ladder. Becomes a diver. Then we have what we call senior divers, lead divers, so essentially the diver who's in charge of the other divers, but who reports to the supervisor. And that's essentially where it ends. We have senior dive supervisors in terms of commercial diving. From becoming a senior diving supervisor, obviously there's opportunities to move ashore and hold a more mundane office job, if you will, go into project management, things like that. As I said, it's sometimes interesting to chat to people who are actually in the trade, who've chosen to become divers, and to ask them what attracted them why they still do it, and what they believe makes a good diver. Zipo has been with Subtech, my goodness, longer than I have, so in excess of 7 years. We asked him what attracted him to becoming a diver. He was a Navy diver before he joined the commercial environment. He said the adventure of a unique career, which it is, very much so. He's currently the diving manager for Subtech South Africa, as I said earlier. We asked him, what do you think it takes to become a good diver? He said good training. Again, I come back to pick your dive school properly. The willingness to adapt and learn new things. Attitude, and I think that's across any kind of job. Attitude. And problem-solving skills. Because very often you'll get to where you need to work and be given a task, and when you get down to the bottom, things are not as they were originally thought to be. So the ability to think on your feet and make a plan. And then we asked him, what would you say to young people thinking about a career as a diver? And he said, have the courage to take on challenges, lead a healthy life, coming back to the dive medical. I must just tell you, oil and gas is very strict, if you don't already know, on drug and alcohol. Zero tolerance. And so obviously as a company we exercise the same, and almost all companies will exercise the same zero tolerance. And then be passionate about a career in the maritime industry, but it really requires passion to be a diver. Looking at some government initiatives in terms of funding again and getting people through training. We applied for and were successful in obtaining a CETA grant from the Transport CETA for 8 divers who had obtained their Class 3 certificate but who didn't have any work experience, which is often the problem that guys have. As with any vocation, I would imagine, you have your degree or your diploma, your certificate, and you come out and no one wants to employ you because you just don't have experience. So this grant allows us a 12-month period of funding for them. So they are working for us on a stipend for 12 months, being exposed to the different services we offer in terms of commercial diving. So at the moment they're working in inland waters. Obviously as trainee divers they need to be in a slightly more protected environment. But it allows them an opportunity after the 12 months is up, we may employ them, depending on operational requirements at the time. But at least it enables them to go to the next employer and say, hey, I've got 12 months with a commercial diving company, what about me?
Subject to the vessel Marburg for extension of the hull survey. Surveyor is not present, Mr. Jonathan Luxembourg.
The voice that you can hear talking is the dive supervisor, and he's actually talking to his diver. The rest of the sound is going to sound like the moon, unfortunately.
We're going to start on the starboard side, brother. We're going to sit there. No, that is, there are 2 sides of the starboard side about the boat. Should find it. Yeah, it's all good.
So essentially what they're actually doing here is an underwater inspection of a vessel that's alongside to check for growth and general maintenance of the vessel on the whole side.
Roger.
And believe it or not, the supervisor does actually understand everything the diver's saying. I can't.
Oh, that's good. Carry on.
Okay. I don't want it to run for too long. I just wanted to give you an idea of what an underwater inspection looks like and how the comm system works so that the diver is always actually in contact with the supervisor. Career opportunities, again, talking to Subtech specifically. are all of the items that are listed there. I believe everyone gets a copy of the presentation, so I'm not going to read them to you. The one that I wanted to talk about is the option of hull cleaning. I don't know if you're aware that hull cleaning in South African ports has been disallowed for quite some time. There are plans afoot for hull cleaning to actually be once again allowed under certain strict conditions. Obviously, a lot to do with the environment and protection, because hull cleaning involves taking the growth off the vessels. And the reason why ship owners want to take growth off the vessels is it slows the vessels down, burns more fuel. Okay. It's something South Africa hasn't been allowed to offer, other than the Port of Durban, where someone has a research license at this point in time. But it is something that is on the cards to come about, and that is something we'd like to be able to offer as a service, specifically in the Port of Saldanha, Port of Cape Town, Port of Durban, etc. Where we already have a presence, where we already do a fair amount of work. We draw in divers from this region, so a number of our divers do actually come from the West Coast. And that's a future development that we see coming to the Port of Saldanha soon, hopefully. And then turning to offshore diving, again, offshore opportunities, and we're back with the acronyms again. So FPSO is a floating platform and storage facility. A UWILD is an underwater inspection in lieu of dry dock. So very often what will happen is you see these big rigs come by. It's obviously hell of expensive to take them out of the water or out of commission for any length of time. So what they will do is they will request from their classification society an underwater inspection in lieu of a dry dock. In order to save costs, they will ask for a dive team to come and do an underwater inspection. If the classification surveyor is happy with what he sees, he will give them an extension, or he will say they do not have to dry dock the rig. So turning to the Port of Saldanha, which is why we're here, that was a futuristic drawing. Unfortunately, it's not very clear in terms of what the Port of Saldanha could potentially look like. So just talking about a little bit of work that we've done in the Port of Saldanha over the last while. We've done some UWILDs on a ultra deep water driller, the Eric Rada. Some UWILDs for RK Offshore. We had 3 of the vessels here on warm layup. An LNG tanker, which is the one on the right-hand side picture, where her steam turbine blow-off overboard pipe needed to be replaced. Please do not ask me what that is. I have no idea. And then we were extensively involved in the maintenance, repair, key construction for Basil Reed, which is where we were talking about it earlier. We still have iron ore dust in Cape Town in our parking lot from the vehicles coming back from Saldanha. So it didn't feel right not to conclude with something. I wanted to emphasize a commercial diving offers a career to people in a multitude of sectors. It's very much the poor cousin of the maritime industry at this point in time, because nobody really talks about us until they need us. We're an integral service to oil and gas. Oil and gas really would not be able to function without the services of a commercial diving company. And it's not just in South Africa, as I said earlier. We're talking Gulf of Mexico, the North Sea, Norway, West Africa, and soon East Africa. I'm sure you guys are all aware of the enormous gas field finds that they have found off northern Mozambique, lower Tanzania. That's set to change the landscape of East Africa forever. And it provides, okay, I'm reiterating myself, but anyway, it provides careers both offshore and locally. And then I was asked, just to, in case you wondered why commercial diving was even a feature in these talks, was just to talk you through where it fits into the matrix for the series. So you'll find us under fabrication, construction, repairs and maintenance, and auxiliary services. And then I wanted to thank you for listening to me, for putting up with my mic issues. I appreciate it. In my defense, this is the first time I've had to wear one of these. Hopefully it'll be the last time I have to wear one of these. Hi, Colleen. Are there any questions? Or have I put you all to sleep? Don't forget the back row is getting questions from me. Nothing. I was obviously very good or really bad. Okay, thank you very much, guys.
Okay, thank you, Mandy. I think it was very informative. Normally at the end of these sessions you get like a deep, quiet, where people sit and digest and measure where their company is and how they fit into this and how could they possibly fit into this. And I spoke to a father this morning that says, no, he's here in the capacity as a father because his son is in diving. And then we have, like I said earlier, we have startup businesses and existing businesses and businesses in various fields also. So thank you very much, you guys, for coming. I think we know a bit more about diving than we've known before. And I think with each and every session we learn more about the oil and gas industry and how vast it is. But more importantly, I think we kind of need to see ourselves in there and join in how we develop our businesses and develop ourselves for the industry going forward. So, like our invitation said, these sessions are normally just an hour. We are all business people. The next part of what we do normally monthly is a networking session. So we want to ask you to join us for a cup of tea or a snack, and then networking is part of business, where you speak to each other. Maybe you want to speak to Mandy on a more personal level. Enjoy the rest of the morning with us. And the people that's on training, enjoy the rest of your training. See you next month. Thank you.